You read the Bible, Brett?
Yes.
Well, there's this passage I got memorized. Sort of fits this occasion. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is
TC and Jake.
when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Oh boy, time to podcast again. How you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there.
It's good to hear. Yeah, me too.
What are you eating?
Well, I like to keep my blood sugar up for the show.
I'm like 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
You had a lot of time.
I mean, that's true, but obviously it didn't make a difference. You know, what do you want me to do? Time machine?
Not eat?
Well, if I didn't eat, my blood sugar would be low for the show.
Okay. You also didn't answer the question of what are you eating into a microphone.
To Nutty Bar. Kind of a
Like
quiet snack.
Like the old school, like candy bar, nutty bar, like the wafer?
Yeah. Little Debbie.
God damn, dude. Oh, you have those left from the lake.
No, this is another box.
Oh,
I finished that box a while ago.
it was like 4 days ago.
I mean, I left the lake with one.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
I
two
didn't-
technically, because there's two to a package.
I mean, I respect it heavy, but I don't know that I've seen an adult eat a nutty bar in my life.
They're really good. Everyone else should try them.
What are like other wafer-based candy bars?
I mean, we used to, at Excel, we had a vending machine. I don't know if I've ever told you about the vending machine. They used to give us, before I got there, they would give the kids like a nickel. But then someone saved up the nickels and, you know, was trying to buy a hooker out on Heinz with these extra nickels.
Of course.
Not actually that, but they did run away with a bunch of nickels. They were like, no more nickels, go into a token system. Not that kind of token. And said they give us fake currency. And there was a kid who like just basically set up a bank.
Yeah.
Like he would give you tokens today for 2 tokens tomorrow. Because they'd do it, you know, once a week. And so he'd be like, hey, you're out of tokens. You really want something? No worries. I'll help you out. Just give me 2 the next time that we're going around. And, you know, he had 1 week where he didn't do any, like he just lent out all of his tokens. And for the rest of his time there, he was just swimming in tokens because he was always running at a surplus because once you know, really learned some things about the financial system, thought that he was surely destined to be a billionaire. Meth appears to have gotten significantly in the way, as often goes.
I mean, you can be both, but it sounds like he wasn't. I mean, there was no interest. There's nothing on the package.
Well, I'm saying he would charge interest.
Okay.
He would
I
give
thought
you
were
1
just saying,
token
like-
in exchange for 2 tokens later.
Okay, I thought you were just saying like he lends it to you so that he can have a windfall whenever everybody pays at once or something. And
No.
bad
He gives
business.
you 1 token, you give him back 2.
I remember just like the basic sugar wafers. Now that I'm looking at this,
But yeah,
You're
in
still
that
going?
machine, yeah. Well, here's my last part. In that machine, they had
Jeez,
like
bro.
there's like a couple weeks where they would give me the tokens because they wouldn't give it to me because I was hypoglycemic, supposedly.
well, you had to keep your.
They had some sugarless wafers. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They taste
I'm gonna let
like
you finish.
shit.
I'm gonna let you finish.
No, just go ahead, vamp. You got to vamp.
I remember what these like wafer bars look like, and then they would like smack a couple of them together and put like strawberry icing in the middle of them. But I just
that's what it
this
was.
Is not my.
No, those
This
suck.
is not my
Nutty
game
bars.
at all.
When
Not
I
my
was
game at all.
when I was a kid, my good friend Nick, who you've met, he's part of the wedding party when I got married. His family, they lived about a block away, and I was over there all the time. And his parents had a system set up where whenever something ran out in the house, there was a whiteboard on the house to write it on. And actually, the person who set that up is my realtor, as I'm currently trying to move houses. She is the person doing all of that work. Shout out to Patty Brooks if anyone needs to buy a new home. I would say you can't find anyone better in the entire Metroplex area.
I'm not endorsing that.
I am, but it's just my words. But she had like a whiteboard where you would write stuff that had run out, and I would just write nutty bars. And she got them. It was awesome. Like she had questions. She was like, "I didn't recognize the handwriting," you know. But yeah. They always had nutty bars on deck. Good times.
You were just grifting a very kind woman, is what you're telling me, who now is still being kind to you, probably for little to no charge.
I was doing anything I could to get by. You know how impossible it was for me to get a nutty bar any other way? I was having a full-scale assault war being waged on my tastes and preferences as a child at that time. All in the name of curing a disease I didn't have.
Boy, it's really interesting to think about how much your 30s are just you trying to get back your early teens.
30s? Like, what was I doing in my 20s? It's the rest of my life, friend.
You weren't smoking weed, though.
Yeah, that's true enough. But
they took that from you.
But that's one thing. The rest, all of my behavior is clearly determined by, like you told me I couldn't do this. Well, I'm going to do it for 50 more years.
Yeah, but then also Pizza Hut
die of doing it.
Pizza Hut took the triple decker, and you made a valiant effort to get that back.
Yeah, no, I got that back. I mean, just like my current weight is 100%. When I got to college, I was like, motherfuckers told me I couldn't eat whatever I wanted. Watch this. 4 boxes of mac and cheese a day.
Have you ever considered being the head of like a religion?
You know, I would be great at it. I agree with you there. But no, too self-involved.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the religion. So you sell people on the idea of like, look, you don't have to do any of this shit.
Let's workshop this.
Just do what works. Just do what works for you. What makes you feel good today?
That is the philosophy.
And give me 20% of your income.
Give me $200. Get real.
Get real. So you're really here to lighten the mood with gentrification talk.
Well, yeah, it just seems like a perfect opportunity because I've had a problem with the way that this discourse has unfolded for quite some time. And it's never something that comes up squarely on this show. And even whenever it comes up on Loserville, it's kind of in a glancing way where I don't really have an opportunity to lay out. And I mean, we've talked about it some here and there on this show. But I just thought, give me a chance to just riff on it. You know, full show, just riffing. Lay out the full viewpoint, kind of put it all out on the table. And the reason why I think it's a good opportunity now is because we have a national, perhaps international publication, The Guardian. I don't know if The Guardian's American version counts as an international publication. But anyways, The Guardian wrote an article about...
You know what I call this?
What's that?
Parachuting in.
Yeah, they did parachute in.
They don't know nothing about what's going on the ground. They're just parachute journalism.
I'm sure that whoever wrote it's from here is a freelancer that lives in Dallas and probably has for a long time. And, they're all doing their best. But The Guardian is trying to shine a spotlight on gentrification. And they said, where in America can we go to find a little bit? And they thought no further than Bishop Arts was where they needed to look. And so this, it's checking all the boxes for us. So, I definitely want to start out by saying, that of course I appreciate the work of this journalist. And just that I think that all writing about gentrification comes from the viewpoint of caring about the little guy and wanting to give a voice to people that the system doesn't normally give a voice to. And I think that is awesome, and I fully support them in that effort to help the little guy. I just think that the way that a lot of these articles are, they haven't really thought through in a serious, zoomed out way about what is best for the little guy. And I have some different thoughts, and I would like to offer them. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I read it.
Cool. What did you think?
I don't know much about this stuff. It's
Okay.
really kind of seems bad.
Yeah.
But
No.
I've really never had like a great answer for these things, you know? You want neighborhoods to be cleaned up and to be nicer, but also want the people who have lived there for generations to stay living there. And those two things often seem at conflict, and I don't have a great answer for any of it, really.
Yeah, and I don't know that I or anyone else in the world has a great answer, you know? The answer is that change occurs and that it benefits some people and doesn't benefit others, and the world is always changing, and I don't know what to tell you. You know, if we could cease entropy, then that would be fine, but doesn't seem like that's an option on the table. So let's just keep working, keep going, and try and do it in a way that works out as well as it can for everyone. Not perfectly, because to answer the question of, you know, like, what can we make it so that this guy's grandma's house doesn't get knocked down? You know, I mean, kind of. There's things you can do on the edges, and I have some of those I'd like to suggest here, but not really. It's a tough spot. You know, I just digging into the article. One of the first things that it does is, like, it's trying to say, like, hey, things are going bad for this area, and whenever they're trying to say that it's going bad, they, you know, what I deem to be a pretty inelegant way, are just like, well, obviously it's bad. There's more whites here. Like, they're just citing the statistics of how many Caucasians were in the area before and how many Caucasians are in the area now. And they're like, it's gone up. Bad.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an insane perspective to have. One, totally divorcing it from class seems counterproductive. If it were the case that you know, whites of a low economic status were being swapped out for for low economic status people of other races, then it just doesn't seem to me like that's something worth objecting to. You know, what we're worried about is displacement, right? And I don't know that, like, necessarily just more whites coming in. Like, what you're worried about is that the rich whites are kicking poor people of color out of their homes, and you know, to do that, I think you'd have to work a little bit harder than they're doing. But the big problem that I have beyond that, because I would grant that it probably is rich whites. I'm just docking them for being sloppy, not disagreeing with their conclusion. The big problem that I have is that, again, I think that this betrays that they're not thinking big about the issue. Because what is the solution that they want? Like, they hold this up as a problem. I always get very incensed whenever people mention problems and don't propose solutions. And so, like, go through the potential solutions to this problem of now there's more whites. Is it their goal that we freeze every single area and keep it at the demographics exactly where it is? Is it their goal that whites only live around other whites? Like, that they don't ever attempt to go and live with people of other races? Like, do either of those scenarios benefit the people that the article is worried about? I would say that they do not. Are you with that?
Yeah, I am. I guess where it gets a little bit tricky is just when you're talking about minority communities, there's really kind of two things. The first one is the cultural element of it, which is that it would stand to reason that as more, as we're just saying, whites move in, and there's only a limited amount of space, then you are, by nature, pushing out people who have been there for a very long time and have their own, I don't want to say way of life, but it is like, you know, your people just in general are more likely to share experiences with people that people who came before them shared experiences with. So, like, you know, you see this in babies even, right? Like we've seen studies about like how, and this is why like the Nordic model and stuff gets called into question in America, because people are less likely to participate in social programs with people that don't look like them, or that parents didn't look like their parents. So I guess I could see the argument that, hey, this has been a Latino or this has been a black community for a long time, and that's something that we're proud of because we have like all of the different type of foods that we grew up eating are readily available, and that's one thing. And the second thing is by nature of that, you get almost the reverse. Was it Jacob or Jamal? I can never remember the two names in the study, where people who own those businesses that are like, you know, traditional ethnic foods are more likely to hire people who are like them. The same thing that essentially, you know, elite whites have been doing and continue, or regular middle class whites have done forever. So, but I don't know that either one of those are strong enough to not do it, because again, there's also a ton of research that shows from social science that people, their attitudes towards people who aren't like them change whenever they're around people not like them. And you see it at schools. You know, this was, you know, some of the research that we saw like after the Bush administration like dismantled basically all the federal segregation guidelines or integration guidelines. So I don't know. I mean, I try to put myself in the position of if you were a minority living in this community and all of a sudden you could no longer afford the house that your family grew up in, you could no longer go eat at a place that serves the type of ice cream you grew up eating, but now it's a place called like, you know, Fuzzy Sickle or something that plays like the Vandaliers or whatever. I don't know I don't even know if the Vandaliers are one of those bands or not. I think they're P1s too. So you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. You know. No, I do. But you know, I think it's it's a tough situation, like, because that is one way of looking at it. I agree with that way of looking at it. I'd like to address it again some more in the point that I'm about to make. But I would just say, you know, I continue to ask, like, where is it that authors of articles like this are okay with white people living? Because I think that they would probably be ready to write segregation is bad articles too. And if we are going to dismantle segregation in the city, which I would really like to do, then it is going to involve, you know, change on all sides. Like change is good, and for people who are in a position like, and I think it's fair enough to say that the average person of color in America is in a worse position than the average white person in America. So it seems to me like change is probably going to benefit them overall. You know. Like if I was in a bad spot, I would want it changed. You know, I would embrace change.
I wonder how much this is complicated though by we call it relos. You know, maybe your
relos.
Maybe your realtor knows this, but like it's not an A to B transaction where like, oh, there's a lot of young professionals who want to move to North Oak Cliff. And at the same time, there are a lot of, you know, whether they're young Latinos or black people or even older, that, hey, they'd really like to move to Allen. And it's the same number of people. So we're basically just all moving into different neighborhoods and creating a more diverse, less segregated landscape, because there's so many people moving to the area who aren't from here, like more than anywhere else in the country. And so like then people end up having to move to, you know, places that they have probably less interest in living in, and the one that they were forced out of, and can't quite get into the ones that would be like the A to B, like, oh, you know, actually we'd like to move. You'd like to move down here, some of you, or we'd actually like to move up there.
So I definitely have that's getting to one of the main solutions I have here. But just real quick before we totally leave this topic, in this story, like a lot of times I agree with you in theory of like I do not like the experience of a guy who's been going to the same ice cream shop that his grandparents went to, for his whole life. And now fucking, oi oi and the Bumbleshoots are coming out the speakers at Fuzzy Pops. But fucking a lot of times the anecdotes in these articles, and they are always anecdotes, because I mean, I guess how would you like prove something like this? But it's real spacious, and this article is no different. Like, one of the main guys they're talking to is the fucking white dude that moved there in 2003 because he liked the neighborhood. Like, what? So the early gentrifiers get to decry the later gentrifiers? Like, he's just another fucking gentrifier.
It had a very Brooklyn's just not the same vibe to me. And you get this a lot with Austin as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's just part of it. But yeah, you're right. It's, you could extrapolate it out on a grander scale. Like, this is what this is what people on the right try to do whenever you mention like historic racial housing discrimination. They're like, what about the Native Americans? And I'm like, okay, yeah, but that's not helping.
Yeah.
Like, to bring up. So I don't really know. Let me ask you this from a technical standpoint. So how does it work? Like, if a developer comes in and wants to buy a city block that has residential single-family homes on it, how do you not end up, like, I know the article mentioned some people have sold for more than their house was what they bought for over market value, but that's an outlier. Like, how does that happen? Like, how, I mean, I would think, like, if I had a house, like, if there's 25 houses in a block and this company wants to buy the whole thing, like, do you just, and you own it, not like you're renting from a housing renting company or a collection of renters. How do you, I don't understand how that works. Like, how can they just, it's not eminent domain, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
I'm not aware of an instance of any of these major developments in Oak Cliff using eminent domain. So
and if they are, then I get that.
You're
then I
getting to the
understand.
problem. I don't think that this thing is occurring. Like, the people who are selling their houses, they're making a lot of money. Like, at the end of the article, they're giving an example of a woman whose grandmother lives near the new deck park that's going to be going up by the zoo, or is in the process of going up right now. And they say that her house jumped $39,000 in value in 1 year. And this is at the end of an article about how gentrification is bad. The woman gained nearly $40,000 of wealth in 1 year. I would say that that's awesome. I would like to repeat that trick myself. And like, she says that she doesn't want to sell. So her ability to get to that money is, you could do a cash out refinance and stuff like that. I think, I don't know, dude. I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Like, there's some way that you can benefit from, like, even if she doesn't get that now, eventually the house is going, like, whenever she passes away, either her children will have the opportunity to live in a more valuable home that they can then pass on to their children, or someone's going to sell it and make $40,000 than they would have if this year hadn't occurred. So it just seems like good news to me. And yeah, I thought that they kind of like dipped into like but some of these houses aren't even selling for that much. And I don't know. I don't buy it. There is not, as far as I know, a mechanism where developers can come in and pay people less than what their house is owed. I guess that maybe like there kind of gets some momentum behind it, of like the developers own half the block and they've started to knock those down. And so do you want to just live on this knockdown block, or do you want to sell now? Like, you could do some kind of Daniel Plainfield tactics, but I don't know. I don't think that that's common. I guess I would love to hear more about it. If Philip wants to come on, I think that he would have some clearer answers here. But as far as I know, and I do know something about these issues, these people are getting a ton for their houses, or a ton more than they would have if this was not occurring. This is a wealth generating thing.
Where it could and probably is the biggest problem is if you're renting.
Yes.
And if you're living in a rental home, or if you're living in, one of hundreds of apartment units over there, and I guess you would say you're a management company, basically, or the owner of the buildings. If they decide to cash out, bro down, then you are pretty fucked, because they're going to replace. And I guess that's something that you'd have to tell me how this would work policy wise. I would say that seems like something that the city could get involved with by saying, I mean, that's essentially what they have in other cities, right? Is that we're going to let this company buy this land, develop this buildings, and then it has to be like rent controlled. But I also think that is obviously going to drastically reduce your pool of buyers.
So this was a major issue a couple years ago. Like in West Dallas, there's a guy named Crash who owns a ton of rental homes over there. And the city harangued him about the state of the rental homes, like that they weren't being repaired enough. And he was kind of like, it's low-income housing. If you repaired them more, I would have to charge more. And then where are these people going to go? And at a certain point, he threw up his hands and was like, all right, I just want out. Like, I don't want any more harassment from the city, so I'm just going to sell all of them. And then it was like, well, he's got hundreds of homes over there. If he sells all of them right now to speculators, all these people are going to be out of home. Like, this is going to be a crisis for the city. And, I'm trying to remember exactly how it resolved. I know that he did come up with a thing where he just basically offered all of the people who were in the homes the right to buy them and was giving them, I recall it to be pretty reasonable terms. I think that there was definitely argumentation about that. Like, there was definitely people who were renting who were like, these terms are ridiculous. He's trying to exploit us. I never felt 100% confident about which way that was. Yeah. So what you're talking about definitely goes on. The renting thing is a huge problem. I have a solution for that, but I want to put a pin in it because I want to get to the other thing that I said that I was going to get to a couple minutes ago about just like the people wanting to stay in their neighborhoods, right? Like that's a major thing that we would all like to accomplish here, right? Is that if your family has lived in this neighborhood for generations, that you would like to continue to live in it. And the solution there to me is the one that the people writing these articles hate. Like the article is like one of the key examples of a person who's not allowed to stay in their home is someone whose home was knocked down for an apartment. But the fact is that if you take a bunch of single family homes, knock them down and build apartments in their place, a ton more people can live in that area. And it's not like the apartments are seen as like gentrification is occurring, like that's the proof of it. But that's a misunderstanding of the forces at work here. The fact that more people wanted to live there, that it became a more attractive area, meant that the demand was like the demand for living in that area is going up. And so if you don't do something with the supply, then the prices are going to get much worse than otherwise. The problem is that they're not building enough apartments. Like the problem is they aren't knocking down enough single family homes to build more apartments. A lot of people aren't going to love this. Like my favorite home that's ever existed on the face of the planet is my grandparents' home, my mom's mom and dad. I loved it. I have the best memories of my life growing up. All happened there. Their basement was the coolest fucking thing on the planet, full of Notre Dame memorabilia, pretty tight. Giant backyard that had a bunch of cool statues. They had a hot tub. I know you would have loved it, dude. And it was knocked down to build a McMansion. And, I don't love that. In fact, I hate it. And whenever I think about it, it gets me really upset. But it's how it goes. Like I would not complain to a journalist about it because I didn't have the money to buy it out from I couldn't buy it. No one deeded it to me. And that's life. Like the people who were able to buy it could make more money by doing that. And I understand. But some people take it more personally than that and feel that it is more of an affront, and it's all kind of an emotional thing. But I think that it's a reasonable middle ground to say like, well, we won't kick you out of the neighborhood, and your displacement is going to occur more and at a faster rate if you don't increase the housing supply in that area. So you need to be building more apartments. And like the article, talks about how those apartments are expensive, and they are expensive. But I mean, I think it gave like $1,400 as expensive, which I don't know, whatever. I feel like I had to pay that for an apartment in 2012 and thought that it was a pretty good deal, but I don't know, not important. I'm sure it's more than the rent that they were charging for that house prior to that.
Or those apartments. Yeah. I mean, it's the 300% increase is really the key, not so much the price, because if that's just what people are used to paying.
Yeah, and just, this is a little. If you're concerned about citywide housing supply, then this is a real strong argument, in my opinion. It gets a little weaker whenever you're mainly trying to solve the goal of keeping people in these neighborhoods, because I can't say that specifically it's going to happen within the neighborhood, although somewhat, maybe. But what happens whenever you build expensive apartments is that people in medium-priced apartments move into the expensive apartments, and people in low-priced apartments are then able to move into the medium-sized apartments. Like there's this big study that came out on this recently that supported, the previous studies that had found a similar thing of just the building of luxury apartments. Like whenever you're worried about homelessness in the city, and you say build more apartments, people are like, well, the only thing they build is these luxury apartments. And I think I think it's bad that they only build luxury apartments, and I think there's things you can do to make it so that more like missing middle housing gets built. But even if the only thing you build is more luxury apartments, it does help the homeless, because it means more, everyone moves up the chain. You have these they'll study the study that came out was, I think, going like 10 links deep of studying, whenever this housing got built, who moved into it, where did they move from, who moved into their old place, all right, the people that moved into the old place, who moved into their old place, and going down the chain, and just seeing that it did have positive effects on the price of housing for everyone in the area. But, like I said, I can't guarantee that building luxury apartments in Oak Cliff means that lower income apartments in Oak Cliff get less. It might be that they're somewhere else in the city. But just the average price of housing in the area is going to go down if you build more. Like, that's just basic supply and demand kinds of things. And so whenever the article's like, it sucks that these people can't all still live here, and then is like, it also sucks that there's more housing being built. Like, where do you want these people to live? Like, I would like for them to, I wish that I could have just been given my grandmother's house because I liked it a lot, but that's, I think we can all see it's not a system that's like sustainable and going to work for everyone. And, the reason why, you got to stop and think about, why is demand going up? It's because there's more good restaurants and shops, and it's a nicer place to live. And so if you're trying to fight that demand by attacking the demand rather than increasing the supply, you're basically saying, I don't think that these people ought to have nice things. Like, you're decrying the fact that that their restaurants are less shitty. And that doesn't seem to me like a well-considered thoughtfulness towards the poor, I don't want the things around their houses to stay shitty forever. I would like for them to get better and be good.
So what about the point, though, and this doesn't necessarily apply to like individual restaurants, but like when the city offers all sorts of revenue to have a grocery store chain, or, I don't know I feel like they referenced both H-E-B and another supermarket in this article, but like that they entice them, and they entice them only to do it in the North Oak Cliff as opposed to South Oak Cliff, which has far more like food deserts. Like, what would be the argument against enticing them to do it in South Oak Cliff?
Yeah, I think the city should spend more resources on South Oak Cliff, but the thing you got to realize, and that I'm kind of like, this is one of the ones where some of these points are kind of complicated or whatever. I can see how they're not obvious. I don't see how the writer of the article didn't stop and be like, but what would happen if we built the H-E-B in South Oak Cliff? I'll tell you what would happen, Jake. The exact kind of gentrification they're decrying.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I guess that's true.
I
just kind of
they're
thought
complaining
of it,
that their
really.
area is not gentrifying fast enough in the article about how gentrification is bad. But I think it'd be great because I don't think the gentrification is bad. I think there's aspects of it that are bad that should be, and I want to get to that. Policy suggestions that I would suggest that they make to try and make the effects more gentle. I know the council person there is Chad West, and I would bet that based on his other stuff, I don't know. It's not like every decision he's ever made that I think is perfect, but he's a guy who's, I believe, his heart's in the right place about a lot of things, and would bet that he would have some decent reasons. But I don't want to just tell everyone to take that at face value. But whenever I read that, I was like, I wonder what Chad would say about this. I was a little surprised he wasn't quoted in the article, because he's usually pretty easy to get a hold of. I know. I've been able to do it many times. And so, but yeah, I think that it would be a better idea to put resources into increasing property values in South Oak Cliff rather than North Oak Cliff. It seems to me like North Oak Cliff does not need any incentives. It's already a pretty hot market. That's what the article's about. But yeah, so the ideas that I would have about how to make things a little bit better for the people for whom gentrification is occurring around is you can, I think, establish, there has been legislation proposed in Texas in the past that establishes a definition of what gentrification is. Just like a hard thing about like whenever property values are increasing at this rate or something like that, or, like whenever vacancies are at this level, something. And whenever a zip code tips into that area, that the people who are already there have a cap on how much you can increase their property taxes. Because that woman that we were talking about earlier, whose house jumped $40,000 in value, I think that is good for her. But one of the obvious downsides is that her house is going to be valued at more, and she's going to have a giant increase. That I struggle to understand how her income would keep pace with that kind of wealth increase to be able to pay the property taxes on it. I think that good things should happen for the people that already live in these kinds of places. So I think that's something that it's a no-brainer. I wish that it would have passed whenever it was proposed before. It was a pretty bullshit reason, as far as I understand, of why it didn't. It was whenever the bathroom bill was up, and Republicans, like on the last day of session, were just going around to people and being like, yeah, we're just going to protest vote this thing that we agreed on before, because if we can't get our bathroom bill, then fuck you. And so
what a classic conflation of things that could really help people and things that probably aren't helping very many people or hurting very many people, getting in the way of one another.
But yeah, I think that it had the votes before. I mean, I think that there's a chance that whenever they were making this list of things we're going to scuttle as revenge for the bathroom bill, that the fact that they could, there's definitely people out there who, real estate developers probably love that the people have higher property taxes, because it gives them incentives to sell to real estate developers, and real estate developers pay lobbyists. So it's not like everyone loves this. There are special interests that are against it, but it seemed, I thought that they might have had the votes absent the bathroom bill revolt. And whatever, they just did another session and they didn't pass that law again. So, what are you going to do? But I think that's a great idea. I think that there should be a cap on increases in property values for gentrifying areas, because that would make it so that it is a just good thing for the people who are already there if the property values started going up. But then as far as the real... That's a realistic solution, like something that has been proposed and could conceivably pass. The real problem, I think that all of this is just that we live in an unequal society, and I would suggest that we adopt a more Northern European style government in order to try to ameliorate these things. The problem is that there are extremely poor people in our society, and if all of the people we were talking about were, somewhat comfortable, which is possible in the richest country on earth. If wealth were distributed more evenly, we could if wealth were distributed exactly evenly across America, I think it's every family of four would have like $200,000 in wealth. Like, how much do you have in wealth right now? I don't know that I have close to $200,000, and I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
I don't have enough to know.
Yeah. And so, anyone who has $200,000 in wealth is not being forced into anything. They're selling their house because they think it's a good idea, not because they're out of options. And, you don't even have to get to the exactly $200,000. You could still have somewhat unequal distribution if it was just closer. If there's just a robust welfare state where the floor on how much a family could have living in America, then you just remove this thing where it feels like people are being forced at not necessarily gunpoint, but kind of. Police will show up with guns if you don't pay your taxes or pay your rent. That's what I meant, rent. So, that's its own kind of being forced off. And yeah, I just, all of these are problems created because we have extremely poor people in our society. And so then people who have resources can bully them around, and, it's a bad deal.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not quite as radical on that as possibly you are, but I do think that whenever you're talking about a neighborhood where a bunch of new businesses are moving in and people want to tout job creation, if those businesses were forced to pay a more livable wage, that would also be a much smaller step than a flat redistribution. But I also think it would be very helpful.
Yeah. The gentrification is creating lots more jobs. And I don't know. For someone who's been interested in city issues for a while, the idea that anyone's complaining about jobs being created, like one of the giant problems our city faces is that all of the jobs are in the north, and plenty of people who are poor live in the south. And so I don't know. It's still not. It's not like this solved it or came anywhere fucking close. There's more work to be done than we can probably do in my lifetime to create an equitable situation there. But it's a step in the right direction. And yeah, so the article is like, they create jobs, but are they great jobs? And I wish they were better. And if we could put policies in place to push them to be better, then sure, let's do that. But I don't know, man. It used to be that there was none. Like, have you ever seen, the Morning News has a photo, I found it on their website a while ago, of the Tyler and Davis, I think, intersection in like 1997. And it's nothing. Every single one of the storefronts that now make up the heart of Bishop Arts were just standing empty, abandoned. And you can't tell me this isn't much better. Like, how are you writing an article about how it's bad that there's business going on in these places? Like I said, I understand. I like that they're looking out for the ways in which these things have affected the lives of the little guy negatively. But I just think that it's good for everyone if there are thriving businesses there, and that there's ways that we can solve. Like, I'm not even arguing against their solutions because I don't think that they're offering any. Like, they kind of seem to be gesturing at like, well, everyone should just stop moving here. And I don't think that it's going to happen. And again, I don't think it'd be good for the people who are there if they did. Like, just all these good businesses, we should get them out. Like, I don't know, man. What I would do is make it easy to build lots of housing so that anyone who wanted to continue to live in the neighborhood could continue to live in the neighborhood. I would cap the increase in property taxes for people who were there before it started gentrifying. And I would encourage America to switch to a Northern European-style governmental system.
There you have it, folks. He laid it all out for you. Now, here's the real question. Would you take the Bears laying 2.5 this weekend?
Too much going on. I would stay away until there's any kind of...
Till we clear up this Fields thing?
Yeah, if you don't know who's playing quarterback, you want to bet on that game?
Man, I was really close to triple playing Vanderbilt after our conversation with Ben. I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
What'd you end up doing?
It's something even worse.
What's that?
Oklahoma State getting 4 at Boise State.
Ooh, I didn't realize that game was going on. That's a good one.
It is a fun game, and Mike Gundy's very, very good against the spread typically, but Oklahoma State has been pretty fucking terrible through their first 2 weeks, and I remained undeterred for God knows what reason.
I did not like what Bachmeier was giving me in that UCF game. Did you watch much of that?
No.
It was the big Thursday night, and it got rain delayed significantly. So it kicked off at around the time that Ohio State Minnesota was ending. It was beautiful.
Oh, there you go. I went to bed after that Ohio State game.
No, he absolutely lost the game for him. They had a big lead, saw all of it go away. UCF goes up at the end of the towards the end of the fourth, but he's got enough time to score a touchdown, which would win the game. and I think a field goal would tie it. And they're on the right side of the 50. So really not much you got, like very few things you could do to lose the game. And is running out of bounds, just throws an absolute duck to a double covered receiver. The defensive back looks surprised that it's so easy. Game over. And that was one of those, it was very, in the way that I was complaining about Spencer Rattler, you know, I can't see you do that too many times before I'm just like, yeah.
Okay, I feel better about it now.
Yeah.
I feel a little better about it now.
If it's close, Bachmeier will make sure that he can guide that one home. I mean, he's got a lot of the good things. Like he's one of the better quarterbacks that Boise has had, but I want to see how you are in crunch time. And I just
never
didn't love
forget
it.
Kellen Moore went 50-3 and 3 losses were by 9 points combined.
I will never forget that. In the article, the lady complains about how no one used to say North Oak Cliff and South Oak Cliff, and I can't really speak to, like, if she's saying that people are saying it more in her life, who am I to argue? It's her life. But South Oak Cliff High School was established in 1952. So if you want to try to allege to me the name South Oak Cliff wasn't around until 2007 or something, I just don't think you can come with the evidence. Whatever. She seemed like the woman that they're quoting who says that, like she's someone who cares about her community. We need more people like that in Dallas. Love the energy, but I don't know. Her other big thing was like, so what gentrification is going on in your neighborhood? Well, no businesses or like housing price increases, but like there was some guys that used to play dominoes, and I don't see them much anymore. That's what she says.
We sound like assholes mentioning that, but it is a pretty.
Who I think is the
assertion.
Again, I like that we have writers in Dallas who are caring about city issues and getting them published in the Guardian. But I thought that the writer did her a disservice by deciding to make that a printed quote in a major publication.
Don't talk to the media, folks.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back with something fun and exciting next week.
Cool, man.
That's it for tonight. The high school special is next, so until tomorrow, for everyone who's been a part of this one, I'm
TC and Jake.
We do thank you for watching. Good night.